Just over 3 weeks ago, more than 1,000 people marched through the streets of Dublin in support of my next guests. They are the parents of 9-year-old Harvey Morrison, who sadly died in July, and whose story captured the heart of the nation and the attention of politicians from all sides of the Dáil. Would you please welcome Harvey's parents, Gillian, Sherratt, and Stephen Morrison. Guys, as you can hear from that tonight, there are so many people supporting you and supporting your campaign. Before we talk about that, can we just say we're so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Harvey sounded like he was such a special wee boy.
He really was, yeah.
He was, yeah. He was our everything, you know. He was a daredevil, you know. He was so good in his wheelchair, and he loved everything that most kids love to do. He was extremely brave.
He loved a bit of Paw Patrol. He loved a bit of speed in the wheelchair. He was a character.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. He was always a big fan of going fast and doing his wheelies, and you know, he had great taste in music. He was a big fan of the Beatles. That was his favourite band, so yeah, he had great taste.
He had a lot of health issues. What were they?
So Harvey's primary diagnosis would be spina bifida. He was paralysed from about chest height down, so that's why he was a full-time wheelchair user. He also had a condition called hydrocephalus, which kind of goes hand in hand with spina bifida, where there'd be a buildup of fluid in the brain, and then he had severe scoliosis, and he was non-verbal. There were some other kind of smaller things, but they would kind of be the main things that really affected Harvey.
And when did it become apparent that the scoliosis was going to be a life or death situation for Harvey?
So he was about 3 years, or no, sorry, he was about a year old. When we were brought into a room, we were told that Harvey's lungs were being crushed by his ribcage, and that his scoliosis was going to be a life or death thing for him. And around that time, we kind of started to see him become a bit more weak and tired and stuff like that, and he'd consistently kind of get sick as well.
And he was constantly getting infections and was in and out of hospital. You know, you said the countless amount of times you were sleeping on a hospital floor.
Yeah.
How hard was that on you guys and on Harvey?
It takes a massive toll on your family life. Watching Harvey have to travel in an ambulance regularly and have to go in with him, it's mentally, physically exhausting. You know, it's something you can't even really explain it until you're doing it all the time. And I know the other kids seeing their brother, or especially Lila seeing her brother the way he was, it wasn't, you know, it's nothing a family should ever have to go through, ever. You know, it's unfair.
What type of treatment was Harvey being offered, Gillian?
Well, when Harvey, around that time, there was a plan for Harvey, if it progressed too quickly, they were going to put him in a thing called a halo gravity traction, which is where there's a metal band screwed to the skull. It's on a hoist system on a wheelchair. And the plan at that time, because he was too small for surgery, was that if it was progressing too rapidly, they could do that for 8 or 9 years. But that would require full-time 24-hour nursing support at home. So it was something we were obviously keen to avoid, but we were also, if it was between that or letting him deteriorate and die, obviously we would have gone ahead with it. But then, thankfully, you know, it didn't end up coming to that.
Disability waiting lists, you know, are so much in the news. Harvey was put on a waiting list for surgery in 2022. Mm-hmm. He spent nearly 3 years on that waiting list. What happened during that time?
So he was added to the wait list in February 2022, the urgent surgical list. And at the time then, at the end of May, start of June, we had to bring him into hospital because he was having breathing difficulties and he ended up in ICU. And at the time, his surgeon said that he was planning for surgery in the August of that year, but August came and went. And we heard nothing. And then in March of 23, we got a letter in the door with a date for surgery for April, but then that was very quickly cancelled without any explanation. Then in that year, Harvey's health really started to take a decline, and we were finding that they weren't reviewing him as often as they had been. And then in August, end of August 2024, we found out without anyone telling us they'd removed him from the surgical list with a curve of 110 degrees and no plan.
And how did you find that out?
I sent an email asking his status on the wait list.
How long was he off that wait list then?
We still don't know.
We don't know. We haven't been given. We don't know why he was removed from that list yet. We have asked the question numerous times, and that hasn't been given to us, that answer.
You know, you were saying, you know, how his spine was deteriorating at that time. How was Harvey?
He was extremely ill. You know, as I said, like, it was regular ambulance trips. He was always in pain. You know, he genuinely suffered through those months, and it was hard. As a father, it was really, really hard to watch.
And you guys are trying to be there for him. You're trying to be there for your other kids. You're a full-time carer.
Yeah.
I know, Stephen, you were trying to hold down a job as well. How were you coping?
I think we had a lot of good support from the advocacy groups. You know, they've been like a second family to us. Always been there. Even when we had hospital stays, they come in and drop us in, you know, food and stuff for Harvey and that as well. So, but it was you were constantly, you know, juggling life, general life.
Because you're trying to hold everything together as a family. You're trying to do the normal things in order to try to make the family move forward. I mean, you had your wedding planned and booked, and then...
Yeah, we cancelled it. Yeah, we were supposed to get married. We had a big wedding planned, much looking forward to it. But at the time, Harvey was in and out of hospital so much that we realised that we could pay for everything. The day could come and Harvey could be sick and it wouldn't go ahead. So we ended up cancelling it. We eloped last year, just the two of us. But the date that we'd originally booked came and Harvey was actually sick and in hospital. So it was the right call.
You mentioned Harvey's sister, Lila, who was also getting treatment.
Yeah.
What was her experience like?
We've been very lucky in our experience for Lila's cardiac care. Lila had her second open heart surgery just at the start of June, just gone. And thankfully our experience has been great. Her cardiac team have been fantastic, and we're really lucky that despite everything that's happened with Harvey, we still have a huge amount of trust in Lila's cardiac team. But I'm also acutely aware that there are parents all over this country and children all over this country that currently don't feel like they can trust their children's medical providers. And I think a big issue with that is the complete lack of transparency and the lack of answers and clarity into what has been allowed go on in CHI. And like, just as an example, like since 2014, there's been 12 reviews or 12 reports done, and they've only published 6. So I think there's a real issue with parents not feeling like they can trust them, because if they've nothing to hide, why aren't they releasing them? And it obviously parents always then assume the worst because they don't have those answers.
Harvey finally got spinal surgery at the end of last year. How was he after that, Stephen?
Yeah, he was quite good. He did end up in Christmas Day. He ended up getting an infection that we had to go back into hospital with. So some of the metalwork had to be changed out at that time, and he was stuck on a massive amount of antibiotics. We were concerned that he had got that kind of an infection. You know, I suppose, like, not to get into a massive amount into the reports, but like Temple Street at one point had a 75% chance of getting an infection.
Yeah,
you know, if you had a spinal surgery there. That's, you know, 1 child out of 4 will not get an infection. You know, and these are serious infections.
Last July, or July of this year, the very worst thing happened and you guys lost Harvey. You know, as a parent and every parent watching here tonight, to even just hold yourselves together during that time is a huge thing to do. You guys, on top of that, decided to take on this campaign. Why was that important to you, Gillian?
Because I think, his death feels incredibly unjust. You know, we have knowing now that he was only going to live to 9, knowing that he spent the guts of 3 years in pain on a wait list, feels incredibly unjust. If Harvey had had the timely access to healthcare, I feel like he wouldn't have missed so much of his childhood. We would have more memories as a family, more happy memories as a family, and not so many negative memories. And I just feel like it robbed him of a large portion of his childhood, and I think that's incredibly unfair. Like, Harvey's not an isolated case. You know, we see this up and down the country, unfortunately, where these children are being, for want of a better word, they're being neglected. They're not getting the care they need and the time that they need, and these children are being sitting on a wait list to the point that they can become inoperable. I've seen children die. We've seen children end up with massive cardiac problems from this. And it's just, we don't want, having lost Harvey, we don't want any other families to go through what we've gone through.
With this campaign, you talk about other families, and, you know, for you guys to be thinking of other families at this time is a huge, huge thing. Stephen, what are you hoping to get from this campaign?
I think we'd like to see with the complex children and the children with spina bifida, we want to see them prioritised for the surgeries. We're looking for a statutory public inquiry, an independent statutory public inquiry into what's happened at CHI. Because in what we've seen so far is we've seen non-medical grade devices stuck into children. We've seen €19 million misspent. We've had HICWA reports. We've had 12 reports into CHI and even in one of them calling children with spina bifida medical orphans. Do you know, like, this is like that should concern people around the country, that we've got a cohort of children that are going through a hospital system in 2025 that are being called orphans. Do you know?
Harvey's case was raised in the Dáil this week. In 2017, Simon Harris said that he was going to get that waiting list down to under 4 months. I know that you've spoken with Simon Harris. What was that conversation like, Gillian?
It was a bit too little too late, in my opinion. You know, he made that promise in 2017, and then last year, after Harvey was removed from the surgical list, he stood up in the Dáil and said that he'd meet us, and he didn't. And that's one of the big reasons that we've been calling him out, because in those emails and like in all the emails the advocacy groups have sent to him, we've outlined these concerns for years. And I feel like maybe if he'd listened, maybe things would have been different and Harvey would still be here today. And I said to him that it's a pity that it took our child dying to have him willing to meet us now. Because he ignored me when I tried last year. He was incredibly apologetic, but as far as I'm concerned, an apology doesn't help these children. So we're going to meet with him on the 29th of July, or the 29th of September, and we're going to be outlining exactly what we need to see real change for these children. And until then, we won't stop.
Jennifer Carroll McNeil has said that we can and we must do better. I mean, that's hardly any comfort to you, Stephen?
No, I don't think it is, because we've been talking about this for 10 years now. And I think that's one thing that's been quite moving with the Justice for Harvey campaign, is that there's been support from across the political spectrum, no matter if it's been on, you know, if you're left, right, centrist. But I think now is a very particular moment in time where we all have to come together and try to get this sorted. You know, it's not us. It's not Ireland that I grew up in. We don't treat people like this. We don't treat children like this.
What is the next stage for you guys with this campaign, Gillian?
I think a lot of that will hang on how the meeting on the 29th goes. We have a few things in the works, potentially bringing a motion through the Dáil. There was a motion done before from Sinn Féin at the time, but we're looking for a cross-party motion to hopefully enact the changes that we need and to get the statutory inquiry into CHI, spina bifida and scoliosis care. And that inquiry will need to be done with the work of the advocacy groups and with parental input to make sure that it is wide enough that we get the answers that we need.
Today, the CHI has said that the average waiting time now for a scoliosis surgery is 5 months. There are parents of other kids watching this show tonight. If they're on that waiting list, what would you be saying to them?
We just hope it gets better. You know, they say, like, we're not really concerned with the average because one of the things that we're seeing time and time again is that it's the sickest kids that are waiting the longest. So the average might be 5 months, but for the kids with spina bifida or other complex conditions like cerebral palsy, they'd be lucky to get seen in 5 months. They'd be lucky to get it done. And the problem is that the longer they leave them, the more complex they get, and then it's even harder to do the surgeries. So we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep trying to make sure that the system changes. It's too ableist. At the moment, it is an ableist system that prioritises the typically healthy children over our disabled children, and they need to put more of an emphasis onto how they can treat our kids, because our kids can't travel. Our kids can't get treatment in the private hospitals, so health insurance isn't to use, so GoFundMe isn't to use. So we need to see a bigger emphasis on insourcing and bringing the specialists into the country to treat the kids, because at the moment, like, it's only going to get worse.
We have a statement from the CHI today. They said, "We extend our deepest condolences to Harvey's family. Many of our clinicians have cared for Harvey his whole life and are deeply affected by his passing. We remain available to meet Harvey's family if and when they wish to do so. The CHI cannot comment publicly about details of Harvey's individual case, even if a family decides to make their story public. We are still bound by patient confidentiality."
But we're not.
No. And for you, it's important to keep this fight and to try to make change.
I think it'd be a good legacy for Harvey if we can see some real positive change from his life.
Guys, I know how difficult this is for you tonight. It's not going to change things for you. It's going to change things for hopefully for a lot of other people. On behalf of everybody watching tonight, can I just say thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Gillian.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.